Welcome one and all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. We've had some dry days recently, but that doesn't mean leaks won't pop up. And you know the rains are coming when it comes to South Florida. Water Cleanup of Florida will make sure those leaks end before they begin. Give them a call, 954-579-0356. With over 60 years of combined experience between Mike, Robert, and their entire team. Michael, Robert, their entire team will not only make sure that the area is dry, they find the issue, the area is dried, fixed, but with licensed, insured, certified contractors, they will make sure it looks good as new. Water Cleanup of Florida help my wife and I, and they will help you. 954-579-0356, WCUFL.com. Check them out on their website. Plus, with over 60, I think it's over 70 actually, 5-star reviews on Google. You don't have to just take my word for it. You can take everyone else's who's used Water Cleanup of Florida. Water Cleanup of Florida. Check them out on the socials. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Water Cleanup FL. Don't let leaks ruin your day. Don't let water get in your way. Water Cleanup of Florida will help you. If you have the schmutz, they have the guts. It was an interesting weekend, once again, for the Miami Hurricanes. When it comes to football. But the Miami Dolphins and Miami Heat actually had a pretty good weekend. The Dolphins sitting there now at 8-3 after a great first half, sort of second half against the Houston Texans. We talked a lot about it today with Tony Segreto and John Congemi right here. The Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
We had to make certain juxtapositions and special arrangements here on the program today to accommodate Lubie's busy travel schedule.
I'm glad you straightened that out. It wasn't my doing. I was asked, can you do 7 o'clock Monday morning? Sure, for Lubie, anything.
Well, it's a perfect occasion to have you here on the program after just a gigantic weekend of football all the way around, college and the pros. I was texting Tony during the Saturday games. A lot of spectacular stuff going on. Of course, started with a little bit of a poke at his University of Miami team. Not that I don't love the Canes, having been affiliated with them very closely for many, many glorious years. And I really enjoyed all of my associations there. Some great friendships were formed that will, last to my grave. And it was a terrific period of time. But I'm watching Florida State and Florida on Friday night, and I'm thinking, wow, these two teams look really good as college football teams. Now, it was a shootout, and it seemed like whoever had the ball last was probably going to win the game. It didn't quite turn out that way, but close. And I remember I text Tony in the middle of this thing, and like the first quarter, I said, these two teams are light years ahead of UM.
Yeah.
Oh,
and sure enough, UM, but they were. I mean, they just looked like polished college football teams.
Florida State, for sure. I'm still sort
the Gators didn't look bad either. I mean, considering everything.
But, here's the thing. I think really, and again, I always say this: rivalry games are different. They just are. The guys get up differently. They play differently. I think that it's hard to gauge that. And I think Florida looked good because they're playing Florida State. Prior to that game, Florida has not looked very, very good. And listen, I knew that we were gonna talk about this morning, and I watched, and I was disappointed on Saturday as well, watching Miami play Pitt and see how they played, and it's just
another pathetic, lifeless.
Thank God we're through the season. Thank God we're through the season. Let's see. Let's go from here.
But zero improvement. I mean, a regression through the course of the year, Tony Segreto. Which was very hard to explain. Considering we have a better coaching staff, supposedly.
And I still think we have a better coaching staff. But again, players got to buy in, and there's going to have to be a whole revamp. I am not going to be surprised if we see a whole redo, a restructuring of this roster. And I'm telling you.
Well, you would have to.
Obviously that's an understatement. But again, I'm hearkening back to, Mr. Negativity over here on the upper left, the guy right here. Norvell is an ass. He's a horrible coach. He's going to be terrible.
But that's Lubie. You can't go by Lubie.
Wait. The first year was the same thing, man. I think, they're not getting any better. This sucks, this whole deal. This team is going to be in the top 15 and going to get a decent bowl. And listen, my daughter, Lubie, everybody was all gung-ho about them going to the Orange Bowl. That's a possibility. But a lot had to happen. And the main one to have happen didn't happen because Clemson got beat.
Yeah.
And as a result, we find them back in the pack, but I still think Florida State's going to wind up with a really nice bowl, and
as they
we'll
should.
see,
They played well.
yeah, as they should, and we'll see where they wind up on Tuesday night. I think that I think they'll probably wind up pretty close to where the AP poll put them at. We're at 14. Lubie, are they at 14 in the AP poll?
They'll probably be 12-13. I can see them 12-13.
Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of debate as to whether Ohio State still should be in the Final Four. And God, I just hope that's not happening.
No, I can't imagine.
I can't imagine. They just got speedboated out. I mean, Michigan just
Did you hear from Ed Garcia?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Is Ed going to join us today if ever there was a day for him?
7:30. Ed will be on with us at 7:30 this morning.
Oh,
we gotta celebrate.
All right.
He said, I'm on cloud nine. I said, I hope you're texting me this, and please don't misunderstand me. I hope you're texting me this after having, some libation as a result of this win. He goes, oh, yes, for sure. But that was
and you remember the rhetoric, the narrative, the conversation, as they call it. Most of the season, the first 6 or 7 games, was that Michigan was playing a bunch of patsies. So we'll finally see what they're all about when they played Penn State, I guess. And
yes,
that was like their first real test, and they survived that, and were very impressive. And then they just mowed through them. What was it, like 27-3 in the second half of that game? That was pretty phenomenal.
Dominated. I mean, they totally dominated that line of scrimmage. I mean, totally just ramrodded them, and it was impressive. I got to tell you, there were some that whole day. I thought that whole day
that was a great day of college football.
It was fabulous, and I'd like to see, and I am gonna mention this. I love to see teams that continue to battle, that continue to fight. Clemson was still, regardless of whether they lost, regardless of whether you lost, like or dislike Dabo Swinney, they fought to the very end. And then this young player, muffs, fumbles a kick right before. I mean, with a shot that Clemson can still win the game at the very end of the game. Seconds left in the game, the kid fumbles it. They lose the ball. Dabo was not happy, obviously, but the way he grabbed that kid and consoled him and talked to him on the sideline and away from the camera got them. He wasn't doing it in front of the camera. I just thought that was beautiful. And the way, Clemson continued to fight. Notre Dame continued to fight their ass off to the end of the game, despite the fact that, they had some, 2 or 3 really bad plays that cost them the game and lost to a better team and lost to the Patrick Mahomes of college football. Caleb Williams.
This kid's good. Unbelievable.
I am telling you, he's freaking Houdini. This guy is if that young man does not win the Heisman Trophy, I don't know. Listen, I know Bryce Young is really good, but what Caleb Williams has done, that young man was a Heisman moment there. It was impressive. But games like that, Pitt against Miami. We're talking about lamenting because we're Hurricane fans. I went to Miami. We all did their games there. I'm dyed in blue, orange, and green, man. I'm doing interviews today for and this is
that ought to be fun getting done.
I am all about.
There's a chalk outline of Joe Zagacki in front of the Heck Athletic.
I am all about But as long as we keep fighting and keep trying to improve and getting things right and getting it better. Pitt, I thought, showed up and did a heck of a job. So
I didn't see that though from the Canes. See,
I did not see it.
Very characteristic that last, you are singing the praises
that
of
last
wasn't there.
That last game. Listen. I'm not disagreeing with you, Jeff. I am not. It was disappointing.
Yeah.
I want people to listen to what I'm saying. Again, we're going through this. Please listen. I'm as disappointed and as upset as anybody. What I'm saying is, you all want to jump off the bandwagon? That's fine. I'll be on here by myself because it'll change. It'll flip. And when it does, y'all are going, can I please get back on? And I'm going, sure. There's
okay, let me ask you, do you see him making staff changes? Because a lot of people are not happy with the offensive coordinator who pretty much ruined how
I see him. If there's going to be a change in the staff, it may be that. That would be where it would come from. I would think. I would think
it's like firing the hitting coach
again. Yeah, Exactly.
He's always the guy that goes, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you got Charlie Lau and you fired a guy.
All I know is Van Dyke.
Make the
Van
playoffs.
Dyke. I know he had injuries, but he was nothing what the player was. And I always think of Don Shula, God rest his soul. He had his style, but he had his players determine the style. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's the great coaching. That's what they do.
He did a complete 180 with Marino.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not so sure we did that with Tyler. I don't know what we did.
They didn't.
And so we'll see. Listen, we have a whole year to lament. We have a whole year to decide how we want to handle this. And Mario Cristobal has a lot in front of him, a lot to do. And Hurricane fans, either you are or you aren't. Plain and simple. If you want to bitch about your brother, you want to bitch about your sister, that's fine. But they're still your brother and sister, right? Right, Lubie? Am I right?
I'm the king. What are you talking
Think
about?
of it this way, though. A line from a song, guy that I follow a little bit from St. Petersburg, Damon Fowler, has a song, and he says, "You can't start a fire without a spark."
True.
All right, and what we didn't see this year was the spark. In fact, that thing
back.
was just like dead flat. It flamed out, and when you factor in, okay, people can have lofty expectations about a team. I thought the Rams were going to the Super Bowl. Am I right about that?
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
they're going straight to hell, and maybe even like the number one pick.
You're right. It's like there was no pilot light. You're absolutely
But
right.
there was no fire whatsoever going with this team at any time.
No, I was. That's I think the most upsetting part of this is that there wasn't this fight, and I don't mean it. I mean this overwhelming. We're gonna go do this. I just never felt
completely flat starts against good teams. I mean, and Pittsburgh. John Congemi, is John going to be with us later today too? We're doing a doubleheader. Beautiful.
The Pigskin Playbook with John
all to accommodate Lubie's trip to Hawaii, which we're going to be off for like a week here, courtesy of Lubie. He says he doesn't want to go, but we know he wants to go because it'd be like me saying I don't want to go on one of these casino junkets, Tony. I mean,
Where are you going in Hawaii?
I have no idea. You can ask. I'll let you talk to Shirley. I have no clue. I really don't. Yeah. We're still moving.
Come on, you're not even curious.
We've been moving in literally the last 2 weeks. Like we had work done and moved. Like this whole weekend we moved in.
You look far more professional, by the way. With that,
are you in a house? Are you in a house or a condo?
We're in our new house, our 4-bedroom house in Coral Springs.
Wow. Where is it?
It's I'm not telling people where I live. It's in Coral Springs. It's in East Coral Springs.
No,
I don't think I ever owned a 4-bedroom house. I mean, 3 was tops. Well, what do you think, Tony? 4 bedrooms, Lubie. I mean, somehow
think we must be expecting little Lubies
at some point. Yes, at some point.
Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus!
All right, many things happen on the account. So anyway, Lubie's going to Hawaii. We're going to be off for like a week here. We're going to be coming back a week from tomorrow.
Yes,
that's going to be our next show. So Tony's here, and John Congemi going to join us also today here on Appeal Yourself Off the Mat Monday, and then we go on a little bit of a hiatus. John Congemi is going to join us right now here. All right, I want to get into the Dolphins a little bit, and of course the game yesterday starts out 30-zip. Houston has been looking hapless, and is in a very compromising position this year. You got Lovie Smith there. You talk about the ultimate sacrificial lamb. He would be that as I guess is he their interim coach or actually
he's
their
coach.
Head coach?
They hired him.
He's their head coach. Yeah, they hired him. But they've been really getting trounced of late. It's understandable. They might have been competitive a little bit more in some of these losses earlier in the season, but it seems like the steady hammering is starting to get to them a little bit. Unseasonably hot. If you're not a believer in global warming, I suggest that you sit on the sun side in late November of Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah,
they had a shot, and I've been in those seats on the sun side in the lower bowl, John. I don't know if you ever sat down there in like the 140 section or whatever that is. And,
I used to give those away, Defo.
Yeah, exactly.
Those tickets you give away.
Beautiful seats. I mean, you couldn't have a better view of a football game. I mean, it's almost like you're in the game, and you can call to Tom Brady if he's on the sideline there. Hey, Tommy boy, what about yourself? And he'll hear you. But impossible to sit there. And they showed a bunch of Houston fans, and they were just schwitzing. like there's no tomorrow. So, I mean, you would have to figure that Houston was completely up against it because it was a scorching day, late November day, and, the Dolphins hold all the edge. And the Phins offense, to open up the game, extremely exciting as always. I mean, do they not have one of the more electrifying offenses? People think of Kansas City, but Kansas City, gets bogged down sometimes. Tua's been converting on, red zone possessions. When he's inside the 10-yard line, they're usually scoring touchdowns. And on crafty pass plays, so where Tua, does his thing, running around a little bit, and zings a pass in there. Looked perfect for a half. So, what did you think about that? And where does that leave us now? We need to go like 1-5 to get the over this year. That's my first account.
I love where your head's at, Defo. You're focused on that next win. Yes,
1-5 does it. 1-5.
Win.
Could we not get there? I mean,
that...
it seems impossible to conceive that we would not, at least with the Dolphin team, be in a position to cash our bet and probably, if they split their last 6 games, they end up with 11 victories. Not bad.
They should.
Yeah, I think that's highly achievable, and I think that will happen. Thoughts on the game? I thought the Dolphins looked great early. Came out and did what they wanted to do, despite some drops, what we haven't seen out of the Miami receiving core, despite some misses by Tua, which could have been interceptions that were either dropped or bobbled or just missed the mark. But all in all, I thought it was a really good performance coming out of the bye week for the offense. And I was surprised that, not really surprised, but I was happy to see the defense take advantage of a bad team where they shut them down. They completely shut them down on third down. I think they were 2 for 13 on third down. They didn't advance the football in the first half past the 43-yard line. I think they were, 0 for on third down in the first half. They end up getting 5 sacks. They get a defensive score, multiple forced fumbles. It was just a nice, dominant performance, and it was a team performance because this organization has seen dominating offenses, dominating defenses. But I think this team's starting to play complementary football, and that's the way you get to meaningful games in December and January. And that's where this team has to squarely put their focus now. And really, you have San Francisco on the road, the Chargers on the road, and Buffalo on the road in the next 3 weeks. And that's, that's a daunting task on the road because you're going to play really good football teams that can score points and aren't afraid of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Tua Tagovailoa, and they've got their own arsenal of weapons at their disposal. And it's going to come down to, penalties, turnovers, maybe 5 or 6 key plays in the game that sway the victory one way or another. And you're just hoping that, the Dolphins can find enough in the last 6 games, 4 of them on the road, that they can keep the momentum that they've got right now.
Well, and John, what it was nice to see was we've seen this season. Look, the Bills should have lost to the Lions, and the Lions are playing better, but they're still not a good team. Like, you'll play these teams that are down, but that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to win. And the fact that they took it so seriously, the fact that they got up 30-0 at half, they screwed around the second half because he went to the reserves early. You saw Armstead go down, Tua started to get hit, so you weren't taking any chances, and they still held on for a double-digit victory. It's nice to see this team take that step where you're not only beating the teams you're supposed to beat, you're beating them the way you should beat them, which is what good teams do. They're not look at the Ravens. Like, the Ravens struggled mightily with the Jags and then lost. Like, the Dolphins aren't doing that. They're taking care of business in a way we haven't seen them in a long time.
You know what's funny too, Lubie? Everybody takes for granted that, you played the Lions, you played the Bears, and I did. I look at their record and I go, the Dolphins, let's send a house. If I'm a bettor, let's bet the house on these games. Well, the Lions game was a 4-point game.
Yep.
The Bears game was a 3-point game. Yep. The Bills found that out on Thanksgiving. That wasn't going to be a layup. They needed a miracle with 20-some seconds left to pull out a victory. So every game, other than, the Texans kind of being the Texans, and for the second half, they're one play away from Tua going back in the game.
Yes. Because
you're worried about closing it out, right? So you never really know, depending on the opponent. You take it for granted sometimes, but it's the NFL and everybody's getting paid. You always hear that, and it's true because those guys have a competitive spirit. As bad as their record may be at 1-8-1, they played hard in the second half, and they were a couple plays away from making it a 1-possession game. And then the Dolphins were going to have to put their starters back in on offense. But now you've cleared kind of those hurdles that you needed to clear, that you should have cleared, and it sets the stage, to be competitive in the AFC East. We're not only getting in the playoffs, we're talking about winning the AFC East, and that's going to be kind of my focus. San Francisco, yes, very important. Chargers out in LA, very important game. Green Bay on Christmas, yeah, it'll be a good test at home. But it's 3 games against Buffalo, New England, both on the road, and then the Jets at home to close out the season. I think that's going to tell you if the Dolphins can host a playoff game or they're going to be on the road for the playoffs.
Remember how we used to look forward to those, snowbound bloodbaths between the Bills and the Dolphins in the Danny Boy era? Yeah. And, you couldn't wait. There was wild anticipation for these games. And maybe that'll be the case. San Francisco playing very well, shuts out New Orleans, who's been a giant disappointment all season long. That Dennis Allen, I don't know, does he last past this year? John Congemi, he was a failure before with the Raiders. That was, I guess, was that the only time that a team actually left its coach in Europe after they played one of those games in London and didn't have him on the team plane coming back? I remember he canned, I think, after the Raiders laid an egg there. But anyway, San Francisco, it looks like a tall order. The Chargers, obviously dangerous, come back yesterday, win their game in dramatic fashion over Arizona, which I believe had Kyler Murray back in that game, and they get a last-second touchdown and a 2-point conversion to win it. And then, the Bills look like a formidable challenge. But this stat, and I'm sure you guys talked about this, and it surprised me because we did have your man Danny Marino here for 17 seasons or whatever. I think it was 17, and this tied a record. This 30-point performance. That's their 4th consecutive 30-point game, and that ties a franchise record for consecutive games with 30 or more points. Is that possible?
I believe it is, and it is. This is a team that can score a lot of points, and it creates a lot of space. In a defensive secondary, I think.
These guys are wide open. They're wide open in the middle of the field. It's amazing.
I've never seen an offense create as much space, and that speed puts fear in the opposition, definitely. But I think the way to combat the Miami Dolphins going against this offense, you cannot be predictable. And I say that meaning with the linebacker drops and the way that you do things on defense, I just think that you have to change up what your drop zones are and change up your routing and change up the way you disguise things, because this offense is predicated on timing and the ball's coming out on time. And you always see that those windows are wide open because linebackers are taught, hey, I'm going to take a 45-degree angle and I'm going to go to this spot. Well, the Dolphins know that. So the Dolphins are running their routes and they're timing it up so that the blinding speed of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are blowing by where the linebackers are supposed to be into these vast areas of space that all there is green grass and a football, and all you got to do is catch it. And then you've got room to run after catch, which is so dangerous. So if I'm a defensive coordinator going up against the Dolphins, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change up what we do, because the Dolphins have been practicing what they see on film. And I don't know if a team has done that yet or has the cojones to do that, just saying, we're going to change, because the way the teams are playing the Dolphins isn't working. So you have to do something unusual, I think, to combat the Dolphins offense and their speed. And that means kind of change and reroute and disguise differently how you play defense and let them try to adjust, after the first quarter and go, hey, that guy's not supposed to be there. That's not what we've seen on film. And I think that's the only way you're going to slow down this Dolphin offense.
Well, and the conversation rhetoric before the season was, they have Tua surrounded by a decent arsenal of weapons offensively. But, I mean, what's amazing is how many different guys get worked into the equation, and they're all wide open. And then, on top of that, you have Hill and Waddle performing at like high wire act exotic levels and almost impossible to stop. And, you think about, as you were discussing ways to stop the Dolphins, Belichick would always go, hey, let me take away their best performer and see how they do. It's commentary in basketball. You're going to shut down the guy that's the big scorer and let the other guys try to beat you. But it seems like these parts are almost interchangeable. And that's saying a lot considering what's at the top there with Hill and Waddle having sensational Pro Bowl seasons.
Yeah, Jeff, just look at yesterday. It was not pedestrian. I mean, I think Waddle had 10, Hill had 9 catches at the end of the day. But River Craycraft, he was resurrected yesterday. He just came out of nowhere, and he's got 50 or 60 yards at halftime. You got Sherfield that's out there as well. Right. Wilson didn't do a lot in the running game, but he didn't need to. I think the one thing that happened
back up
yesterday,
tight end, on a TD pass.
Yeah, Durham Smythe gets one. Yeah, it was unbelievable how you can spread the ball around. The one thing that can derail this team is if Armstead and that pectoral muscle that he pulled yesterday, if that's a season-ending injury,
that's bad.
They need to try to figure out how they're going to go about getting guys in the right spot on the offensive line, because Austin Jackson looked like he rolled his ankle a bit at the end of the game, came out. Now he was on, that IR for about 4 weeks and came off, and he took a couple more weeks of liberty to practice before he entered the lineup again yesterday at right tackle. Do you move him back to left if Armstead can't play? Do you get Shell back on the right side? Because on the left side, I'm not so sure he's the answer at left tackle. So there's a little bit of discussion if that injury is a lingering one or one that extends into a couple of weeks or season ending. The Dolphins have to come up with an answer up front to keep Tua in rhythm so the ball comes out quickly, the fake play action, because it really – I would rather see if I'm a defense playing against the Dolphins, I'd rather see them gash me on the ground than do it so easily through the air. So I wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to the play action because you're just creating more space for the Dolphins to throw the football. So that offensive line, Defo and Lubie, right now is probably the main concern moving forward over the next 6 games.
Same old song.
Yeah,
it
say,
seems like we've been singing that for a while. But what we're not singing is, sitting here waiting for Devontae Parker to, let us decide whether or not he's a franchise type receiver. It just seems like that passing game is really exciting to watch and is clicking on a lot of different levels. And hopefully Tua can continue that. San Francisco, I think, is shut out like a bunch of teams in the second half this year, and they shut out New Orleans for the entire game yesterday. So that'll be, an interesting test. Obviously, these would be litmus test games coming up for the Miami Dolphins. This was what everybody was talking about. But, true to form, they did win the 5 straight against the suspect opponents that they were playing. And there's a lot to be said for that because not every team is able to accomplish that. All right. So with these 2 West Coast games and then the Buffalo Bills, in your crystal ball, John Congemi, what do you see as the eventual outcome? Will we have our 9 wins at the end of another 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are going to find a way to get one of those 2 games in California. I'm not sure which one. If I had to guess, it would be the Chargers that they'd have. They'd match up a little bit better against. Sure. But you know what? You're going against the Bozas. Now, I'm not sure that both are healthy, but, that's going to be the test of getting the ball out on time, being as efficient as they can be on offense. And the Bills game, depending on the weather, I would say that would be my reservation. I think it's it's much more even than it has been over the past 4 years or 5 years since Josh Allen's been at the helm at quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. I would still give the edge to Buffalo at home. I think they would hold serve against the Dolphins. So I'm thinking that it's going to be that Chargers game. They have the best chance to win. I think San Francisco poses a pretty good challenge offensively because they have their weapons of their own. If Jimmy G has a above, average game, they can score with the Dolphins. So that would be a tough test. That's going to be a good one for Mike McDaniel going home, knowing the 49ers inside and out, having a feel for what they like to do, what they don't like to do. So, maybe that game is gettable because the Dolphins are on a roll right now, winners, of so many games in a row and having some momentum on their side. But that Buffalo game, depending on the weather, that's going to be the toughest one of the three, I think.
Always a great time talking to Tony Segreto and the one and only John Congemi, kicking it old school with Tony Segreto, and Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi. We do it each and every week, usually separate days, but I will be heading out of town, so we combine the worlds. Both have covered the Dolphins for years, covered the Canes. Tony was really entrenched in the Canes program. Still, I think he's on the board for the Miami Hurricanes and the Orange Bowl Committee. John Congemi, an original Phins cider. Also, he does CBS 4's local Dolphin coverage as an analyst. Both are very excited for the Dolphins. It's going to be a tough stretch for the Dolphins, but you know what? They had an easy stretch, and they won the 5 games they had to. They're 8-3. They're number 2 in the AFC. Number 1, tied, but have that edge tiebreaker over the Buffalo Bills, head-to-head victory. So they're in a good spot. And coming in this year, you just hoped for playoffs. Now the Dolphins are thinking playoff victories, and who knows? So really excited about the Miami Dolphins season. The Canes, is going to be a tough offseason. 5-7, got blown out 3 out of 4 games. Had 6 blowout losses, had one of the easier schedules in the country, put a lot of money into the coaching staff, put a lot of money into Mario Cristobal, and they were not good. They were just flat out bad. I get it. It's year 1. I get it. He's going to turn the roster over. I'm just curious why he didn't going into this year. We will see going forward what Mario Cristobal does with the Miami Hurricanes. My Noles got a big in-state rivalry victory over the Florida Gators, finished the season 9-3. And for a team that is in a rebuild, a lot of people question Mike Norvell. They have a top 15 offense. They have a top 15 defense. They have one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country, one of the top 5 to 10 running games in the country. They have turned it around a lot. Are they back? No, titles are what you look for at Florida State, but they aren't the bottom rung in the ACC anymore. They are top 15. They probably could finish top 12 in this upcoming poll. So I am excited. Hopefully, one and all had a great Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, a healthy Thanksgiving, and we'll be back with you. If you want to check out more of what we do, check it out on South Florida Live, Google or YouTube, The Defo Show with Lubie, Google or YouTube, and check us out, our national podcast, The Believe Network, BLEAV.com, search After Hours, and our South Florida content right here, The Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.